I spent all of my funds on my unemployed boyfriend while he followed his dreams. I finally broke up with him when he told me I was using him after a year and $25,000 had passed. In July 2014, my boyfriend and I began dating. He always sees the best in things and had a pretty good life as the only child of split parents. We each had our own place to live and jobs that paid all of our bills and more. He bought a fancy sports car, a game computer, and a breed dog which will become important later. He went to school. When I finished from high school and got my first job as an adult, there was a lot of happiness in my life during the first 6 months. BF was fired unfairly in the first week of January 2015. His new boss was eager to replace everyone on his shift with friends, and they didn't start cleaning up until after the holidays when everyone was less busy. BF's jobless claim was backed up by the government, and BF began getting benefits. He chose not to look for work and instead focus on finishing school. This is where the crack began. That May he was meant to finish, but he failed a class and couldn't. He had to go back to school over the summer. His savings ran out in June, and he had to decide whether to pay rent or his car payment and insurance. It was the last month of his lease, so I agreed to pay it. He could move in with me in July and finish school. He learned a few weeks before his graduation that he needed to take one more class to get out. He also had to go to school that fall. I told him he had to get a job to help pay the bills because I wasn't going to be able to keep him up for so long. Okay, for a month or two. 6 months? Not at all. At the end of July, he got a job as an insurance agent for a very well-known company. What a surprise. This job pays by commission. He was interested in what the boss said about being able to make as much money as he wanted. I paid for the tests he needed to get a job, and then he started offering structured financial goods to try to build a client base. He made nothing and still makes nothing. He'll get $700 for a small close and then nothing for months. He works hard every day, but it's ridiculously hard to get financial clients from scratch when you don't have any family connections or networks already in place. We moved from my fancy flat in the city center to a posse house on the edge of the slums in September 2015. It worked out that I had to pay the security deposit and double rent at both places for a month, which added up to about $3,500. By November, I had almost spent all of my savings, so I had to sell some shares in my family trust and pay a fee for it because my grandfather didn't want us to use it until we were 25 years old. This helped us get by. By deck, I only had $300 saved and nothing left in my family fund. Since July, I had spent about $17,000 to help us. His job paid him enough to take clients, his dog, and my dog out to lunch and coffee. It's been going on since September that we fight over money and chores. As a way to repay me, I thought he would do 90% of the cleaning. On either front, he never changed. He kept telling me the same things that his boss told him to get my attention. Things will get better. At first, everyone has trouble. Hold on, you'll get through it. We'll be rolling in it as soon as I make it. Every time we fought. Every time. We had this fight again 2 weeks before Christmas, and this time I told him to stop giving me fake motivational lines. I screamed as I left the house and drove to get smokes. I was angry because I couldn't decide who to text and ask to stay the night. I'm not going to sleep on someone else's couch while he lives in the house I pay for, eats the food I pay for, and lives in the bed I pay for. I went back home and gave him 10 days to pack up his crap and leave. He moved in with his dad, and I spent Christmas morning getting his presents back online while I hung out with my dog. He seemed to be having a good time with his business when we got together again in January of this year, so he might think about getting a place. I told him he could move back in, but he had to do his jobs and stick to my budget right away if we couldn't split the costs equally at first. Everything was fine at first, but by April he wasn't doing any work and I had to pay for all of his and his dog's living costs again. Additionally, he was about to miss his quarterly goal and asked me to agree to a policy. He then told me to cancel it at the end of the quarter so he could pay me back. I got mad at him. Since I work in capital markets, I can't afford to steal money for him. I told him I had already given up a lot for him, and that he couldn't now try to take away my honor. Plus, the friend he got to do the flipped policy still hasn't been paid back. 5 months later, we had another big fight, and he really stepped up with the chores, which has continued to this day. Still, he didn't have much money. Every month, his fancy car spent it all. In May, he got a big case. In June, he paid half of his rent for the first time, and in July, he offered to pay the whole amount. It was the second week of July, and he was once again broke. He told me at the last minute that he couldn't pay the rent for August. I had to rush to pay the check with the money that I had in one account. Also, he couldn't pay for his share of the food like he said he would, so that was a mess. I'm fed up with this. For my age, I have a great job, paid off all of my college debt 8 months after graduation, and own my own car. But I'm still living from paycheck to support him. He never pays his half even when it's a good reason. There hasn't been even the slightest bit of change in a whole year. People with a lot of money and a trust fund should get this job. They can be broke while they build their company. I like how optimistic he is, but he's not in any pain because I listened to it. I have let him get away with too much for too long, and after our most recent fight over money, I realized he is too young to be doing this job. He gets mad when clients don't buy a policy from him but instead spend their money on toys, cars, and trips. When he had a steady job and spent all his money on a car and a game PC, he doesn't mind getting into regular, pointless fights with me. But he won't ask his parents for help because I don't want to lose his dad's respect. It hurts him that I don't believe his words because he hasn't kept many of them. From his due dates to his jobs to his graduation date, he's not grown enough to see the bigger picture, and because I've been too easy on him, he's never had to because he doesn't have to worry about what will happen. I get hit by them. I told him I wasn't going to renew the lease and would be leaving on my own. He begged me and asked me questions as he followed me around the house. How do you feel about me? What about us? Where am I going? Could you please let me come with you? I've answered all of your questions. Single. Fight. He has to answer these questions because it's his life. I told them I wouldn't answer again and went to bed. That stupid Marilyn Monroe quote about not worthy people at their best if you can't handle them at their worst. He said it as he stood in the doorway. I told him that he could feel that way and walk. That night he locked himself in the computer room and slept on the couch. After everything I've done, I can't believe he thinks I'm leaving him. When he tries to pay his share of the rent and bills by complaining about how hard things are, he doesn't realize how hurtful it is. It annoys me so much, and I've told him that every time we fight, even though we fight all the time, it seems like he's not paying attention to me. Why would he do that? I haven't earned his respect by being his cash slave and not setting limits for myself. His use of me as a safety net makes me feel bad right now. He knows I will not let him or his dog go hungry, so he doesn't bother to find the money for food. This man's positivity is so strong that it makes him break every promise he makes to me. He says that he believes a customer will purchase a pricey plan, but then switch to a cheaper one, leaving him unable to pay his rent. He talks about a networking event where he met a lot of people, but only 3 call him back, and he needs cash to get them out. He says he was supposed to get 40% on a business deal, but he only got 11%, which means he can't pay for groceries this week. He used to lie to me, but now I see he's only lying to himself. He hasn't grown up or based his hopes on reality at all, because I've been in the way of that. So I don't trust him to give me a real date for when I'll have to stop helping him, because I know he'll be wrong about that too. He is starting to freak out now that I'm no longer his Atlas and keeping his world together. I hate it so much that he didn't take me seriously until I hit him with a hammer, which he should have done from the start. I do see the comedy in the fact that he's a broke financial planner. I missed the first 6 months of our relationship, when he had a good job that paid enough to hide the fact that he wasn't good with money. Instead of being his mom and taking care of him all the time, I could have taught him a few things that might have stuck. When we had dinner together, watched football, or went to the movies, I missed him. I missed the friend I had with him a month after I met him. Where I knew I would marry him, I'm not sure at all now. I feel sad because I love him. It is no longer the inner flame it used to be. It is a heavy bond. That guy is still there, hidden under all this crap. Maybe this is just my fatal hope talking. To learn his lesson, he only needs to grow up and take chances on his own. I want the guy I met back so badly I can't even describe it. It's making me cry to write this. He said he only needed a few more months to make it and be secure, so I agreed to let him move back in this year, and I really wanted that for him so we could enjoy life together again. My hope is holding me back just like it's holding him back. Can our relationship last now that I'm taking real steps to make sure it doesn't ruin my finances? Or am I silly to think that anything can change? Would he move in with his dad and ask him to be his new helper? How can he not understand how I feel if I'm not doing anything wrong? Where the original poster has answered, user 1, you couldn't have though. For things to stick, people need to want to learn. I can see why it's hard for you to leave him. His skills and flaws are so closely linked. If you stay, you'll be making the same mistake he is. You'll be doubling down on a bad choice because you think you can fix it with a little more time and work. You and he both can't. Leave now instead of giving in to the sunk cost error. Wow, this is really true. Since I grew up in a home where people were violent, he was a huge source of hope for me when I met him. I can feel it burning now. I really do make the same mistake as you said. I understand what I need to do. It will be awful to do it, but at least to myself I'm worth it. Person 2, there's no hope. You are the only one who can change. He is the only one who can change. He is not changing. Instead, he is putting even more weight on a theory that has not worked in the past. Why doesn't he get another job? You know what? He can work a second job if he can't give up on this dream. That would really pay the minimum wage. Out of the box. He still works during the day, and I can't stand that they don't pay him for that. Because of this, he can't get a second job because he has to meet clients before and after normal work hours. His nice car is on the list of cars that can't be used as Uber cars, so he can't even be an Uber driver. As for taking my car, fuck him. I really dislike his stupid car a lot. His lack of financial sense is shown by the fact that he didn't even spend his money wisely when he had it, and still butt-fuck him. Did I also say that he hasn't registered it or paid the taxes because he doesn't have the money? I don't know who will have to pay that ticket, but I know it won't be me. There have been a lot of changes since my last post. I guess I'll talk about it in order, since that's how I'm working right now, moment by moment. After writing that post, I chose to cut him off for good. I threw away all the gifts I ever gave him, changed the password for the Wi-Fi, and frozen the credit card I gave him. I also tried to close our joint accounts. For those of you who know what a con is, we were going to go to a dork gathering in Atlanta over Labor Day that I planned to pay for both of us more than a year ago. I told him he couldn't go until he paid $600 for his flight and hotel. I still don't understand why I did this instead of telling him he was crazy if he thought he could go. I know I shouldn't have played games, but I'm glad I did because he promised to give me $1,000 by the end of August. Over words, too, in writing. I was shocked. All of a sudden he has the money for a weekend of parties and a chance to get me back? I said I'd use that for the bills for August. After that he could start paying off the last $25,000 he owed me for helping him out last year. Only then could he treat himself to nice things like trips out of state. This was done through text and he never replied. That night he slept on the couch again. It was Friday. Saturday morning around 9 a.m., he left with his dog and all of his stuff in my house. Under his desk I put all of his stuff and the stuff from his dog. I also got rid of any pictures of him that were lying around the house. Except for Facebook and text, I blocked him everywhere else. I looked at 2 rental homes and fell in love with one of them and the owner. That same day I put down a deposit, took my dog for several walks and a long trip to the dog park, and celebrated with my next-door neighbor and her boyfriend while drinking wine through Twizzlers. That night, ex-BF never came back. The whole day of Sunday I worked on cosplays and clothes for the event and had fun with my dog and neighbor. It was beautiful. When I thought this wave of sadness and regret would hit, it never did. His name wasn't on the lease after 24 hours of being gone. He had 24 hours to come get his stuff after I texted him that his claim to residency had been taken away. He said he would be there that night. I said 24 hours notice. He agreed to Monday night. He takes his stuff home in his dad's truck on Monday and gives me the key back. He added "Say Something" by A Great Big World to our shared YouTube playlist hours after he left. This song by Sarah Bareilles and this song by Drake are now added. Then the next morning took away his access to the music. Yay for middle school ways of talking to each other. Wednesday, his best friend texts me like nothing is wrong. Thursday, I text my ex to ask when his check will be arriving. He doesn't answer. I email him on Friday morning. I haven't heard from him since then, as far as I can tell. The next day, I send him one last email that pretty much says the same thing, and he asks me to coffee on Sunday night. We got coffee together. He never talks about paying it back, but we both agreed on how we felt about it when we talked about our feelings. Betrayed, left behind, hurt, and not trusting the other person. If I believed in us, I wouldn't want to be paid back, so he thought I was lying when I said I was okay with supporting him. He also thought I was lending him money under the cover of love and setting him up to fail because I took away his money. I knew he felt used just like I did. That's when I knew I was done. I felt a weight fall on my stomach. I gave him time to finish. Then we went our separate ways. When he asked to get in touch with me, I told him I needed a break. The next day I wrote him about the $1,000 he said he would give me and told him that we never talked about having to pay it back. He didn't answer for days, but on the day I was leaving for the meeting, he did. He said the money was on its way. That's cool, it can stay in my mailbox for 5 days while I'm away. His friends knew we were having a rough time at the same time, but my friends were still able to find him on Tinder and OKC. I had a great time at the meeting, and when I got home, the check was in an envelope that hadn't been addressed or mailed. The next time I owed him money, I paid it off and told him what a jerk he was for using letter mail instead of breaking into my house when I knew I wouldn't be there. He really made me wonder if he was looking for the spare key I gave to the dog sitter. So scary, he responded to that email with a mushy "I love you and I know I messed up" statement, saying that he is too nice and can't say no, and that his need to help others makes him forget about himself. It was the funniest explanation ever. It was too easy for me to take all of your money and energy because I was so nice and helpful. Sorry, I told them. You broke my heart and my bank account. They won't be fixed for a long time, and I hope I won't be stupid enough to trust you with them again by then. If you have emails about payments, I will answer them. Otherwise, good luck with everything. He answered, I would take back everything I did if I could name I love you. From the bottom of my heart. I could have stopped everything. I could have done something, but I let you go. That will be one of the worst things I ever do. I'm truly sorry for making you feel bad. I want you to be glad. That's all I've ever wanted. I moved from the house we were living in to one that was similar but a few streets away. Moving kept me busy enough that I didn't have time to think about this. All of our old things, pictures, and crap got thrown away, so everything in the new place is mine. Just me. After a while, I feel like it still hasn't hit me that it's over. I thought I was going to be crushed, and I felt lonely at times at the gathering, which made me want to smoke, but I just feel embarrassed. I don't even want to look at his Instagram, because seeing a picture of him makes me realize how stupid and foolish I was to think he was the one. Because of that, I also don't trust my thoughts very much anymore. From the moment I met him, I knew we'd be together for a long time. I was sure I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. It was like my name. I have great talks with cute people or see cute people, but I don't want anything more because I don't trust my thoughts enough to act on them. They got me lost so badly the first time. But I guess that's it. Life goes on now that it's over. Comment where commenter 1 has commented up. I remember seeing your first post and asking what would happen. You handled this perfectly, and it's clear that cutting him out of your life is good for your mental and emotional health. You just sound better when you write. I'm happy for you about that. Do not stop moving your feet. Thanks for the smile. I find it strange how quickly he turned into a stranger in front of my eyes. Anyhow, the gathering was good for getting the single bitch thing going again. Haha. I'm going to stay on that road for a while.